Before the beat drops. Before the chorus hits. There's always something deeper hiding underneath. This channel isn't about music at face value. It's about the psychology behind it, the emotions, the fears, the illusions artists package into sound. Here, we don't just listen to songs. We dissect them. Frame by frame. Emotion by emotion. No sugarcoating. No surface-level praise. Just the raw meaning behind the music you thought you understood. If you're ready to hear songs differently, let's begin. There are songs that make you move. And then there are songs that make you stop moving entirely, caught somewhere between the beat and the truth, unable to do anything but feel. This one arrived in 2013 and did something no one expected. It blended country music with electronic beats. It put a folk singer's voice over a dance production. It confused radio programmers and delighted millions. It went #1 in 22 countries. It became the anthem of a generation that didn't know it needed an anthem. But here's the thing about Wake Me Up that most people never stop to consider. It wasn't really a dance track. It was a confession. A confession from a 22-year-old who had suddenly found himself at the center of a world he didn't ask for, carrying weight that was never built to go, feeling his way through darkness he couldn't name. The voice on the track belongs to Aloe Black. But the story? The story belongs to Tim Burton. Avicii. The boy from Stockholm who changed music forever and then left us far too soon. This is the story of that song. Not the chart positions. Not the festivals. The darkness. The journey. The boy who spent all this time finding himself and never knew he was lost. Let's start with the opening, because the opening is where the invitation begins. A simple guitar melody. Acoustic. Warm. It sounds like morning. It sounds like the beginning of something. Then the beat drops, but not the kind of drop we were used to in 2013. Not the synthetic explosion of so much EDM. Something gentler. Something that carries you instead of slamming you. This fusion was intentional. Tim wanted to bridge worlds. He wanted to take the honesty of folk music and the energy of electronic music and create something that hadn't existed before. Critics said it wouldn't work. Radio programmers didn't know where to play it. But Tim knew something they didn't, that people were hungry for music that felt real. That the boundaries between genres were illusions. That a song could be both a dance track and a heartbreak, both a party and a prayer. And then the voice comes in with the confession of someone moving through darkness guided only by what they can feel inside. This isn't someone who knows where they're going. This isn't someone with a map or a plan or a clear vision of the future. This is someone moving forward anyway, not because they can see the path, but because they can feel their own pulse. Because they're alive. Because the alternative to moving is stopping, and stopping isn't an option. There's an admission woven through these opening lines that most people spend their whole lives never reaching. The admission that you don't know where the journey will end, but you know where to start. The wisdom of admitting you don't have it figured out. The wisdom of being okay with not knowing. The wisdom of understanding that you don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. Tim was 23 when he wrote this. 23 years old, already famous beyond comprehension, already touring constantly, already feeling the weight of expectations that would eventually crush him. And somehow, in the middle of all that noise, he wrote about starting anyway. About moving forward even when you can't see where you're going. Then the song introduces the voices that every young person knows. The voices that tell you you're doing it wrong. They come from outside. Parents. Teachers. The older generation. The people who've already been through it, who've already made their mistakes, who look at youth with a mixture of nostalgia and concern. They see someone chasing dreams and they want to warn them. They see someone living in the moment and they want to tell them about the future. The accusation is that youth doesn't understand. That young people are caught up in dreams that won't survive contact with reality. That life will pass them by if they don't open their eyes to how the world actually works. And the response from the song is not what you'd expect. It's not defiance. It's not argument. It's acceptance. The narrator essentially says, maybe you're right. Maybe life will pass me by. Maybe I am too young to understand. Maybe I am caught up in a dream. And maybe that's okay. Maybe being in the dream is exactly where I need to be right now. Maybe understanding can wait. Maybe wisdom comes with time, and time is something I have. This is the psychological layer that the song builds without you even noticing. It's not telling young people to stay ignorant. It's telling them that it's okay not to have everything figured out. That the pressure to understand, to plan, to have your life mapped out before you're old enough to vote, that pressure is the thing that actually kills dreams. That actually steals joy. That actually makes life pass you by while you're busy worrying about it passing you by. There's a quiet rebellion in this stance. A refusal to let the weight of other people's expectations crush the simple act of living. A determination to stay in the moment, even if the moment is confusing, even if the path isn't clear, even if the older and wiser voices think you're making a mistake. And then comes the chorus. The part millions of people sang without realizing they were praying. The central plea is to be woken when it's all over. When there's wisdom and age and perspective. When the journey has reached its end and there's something to look back on. On the surface, this sounds like a wish to fast forward. To skip the hard parts. To get to the other side of struggle without having to live through it. But that's not what it is at all. Wanting to be woken when it's over is actually the opposite of wanting to skip. It's wanting to be fully present for what's happening now, and only looking back when there's something to look back on. It's a way of saying, let me live this. Let me feel this. Let me make my mistakes and have my adventures and find my way through the darkness. And when it's done, when I'm older, when I'm wiser, when I've lived enough to understand, then wake me up. Then tell me what it meant. Then help me make sense of it. This is a song about being in the middle of something. About trusting the process. About knowing that meaning comes after, not during. And then comes the line that destroys everyone who really hears it. The realization that all this time spent moving forward, all this time feeling through darkness, all this time living, it was actually the process of finding yourself. And you didn't even know you were lost while you were lost. This is the most accurate description of self-discovery ever written. You don't know you're lost while you're lost. You only know looking back. You only see the confusion when you're on the other side of it. In the moment, you're just living. You're just moving. You're just following whatever light you can find. And then one day, you look back, and you realize, oh. I was lost. I was lost the whole time. And I didn't even know it. The second verse deepens the confession with an image that Tim Bergling knew intimately. There's a description of trying to carry something too heavy. The weight of the entire world, held up by two hands that were never designed for that kind of burden. Tim knew this weight personally. By the time Wake Me Up was released, he was already one of the biggest DJs in the world. He was touring constantly, producing constantly, meeting constant demands from labels and promoters and fans. He was carrying the weight of an entire industry's expectations. And he was doing it with two hands. With one body. With one mind that was slowly starting to crack under the pressure. The song expresses a hope for something else. A hope for the chance to travel, to see the world, to move without plans and without pressure. The irony is crushing, he was traveling the world constantly. He saw more countries by 25 than most people see in a lifetime. But he couldn't enjoy it because he was working. He couldn't experience it because he was performing. He couldn't be present because he was always already preparing for the next thing. The song also captures a wish that cuts to the heart of what Tim was losing. A wish to stay young enough that sleep still feels safe. That closing your eyes isn't terrifying. That rest doesn't feel like giving up. To close your eyes is to trust. To sleep. To let go. To stop fighting for a few hours. But when you're carrying the weight of the world, closing your eyes is terrifying. Because what if you stop? What if you can't start again? What if the darkness behind your eyelids is darker than the darkness you're already navigating? Tim was afraid to close his eyes. He said as much in interviews. He struggled with sleep, with anxiety, with the constant pressure of being Avicii. And here he was, writing about wishing he wasn't afraid. About wishing he could go back to a time before the weight settled on his shoulders. But there's hope in this verse too. A belief that underneath all the struggle, all the darkness, all the weight, there's something worth playing for. Something worth staying awake for. Something worth finding your way through the darkness to reach. Love is named as the prize. Not money. Not fame. Not success. Love. Tim knew this. He knew it enough to put it in a song that millions would hear. He just couldn't hold on to it for himself. The music video tells this same story, but through images instead of words. A young girl lives in a small, isolated town. Everyone dresses the same. Everyone looks the same. Everyone stares at her because she's different. She has a mark on her skin that sets her apart, something the town doesn't understand and doesn't accept. This is the feeling of not belonging. Of being born into a world that doesn't fit you. Of knowing, somewhere deep down, that there's a place where you belong, but it's not here. Her younger sister shares the same mark. Same difference. Same feeling of being out of place. Then something happens. The older sister leaves. She travels through desolate landscapes, through abandoned cities, through places that look like the world ended and no one told her. She's searching. She doesn't know what for. She just knows she has to go. And then she finds it. A crowd of people. Dancing. Laughing. Alive. And every single one of them has the same mark. This is the moment. This is the discovery. She wasn't lost. She was just in the wrong place. She wasn't broken. She just hadn't found her people yet. She goes back for her sister. They pack their things. They leave together. They walk toward the place where they belong. The video ends with them walking down a long road, hand in hand, toward a horizon we can't see but know is there. This is what Tim wanted for himself. This is what he was searching for. A place where he belonged. A place where the mark meant something. A place where he could stop being lost and start being found. He never quite found it. But he gave us the map. There's a truth at the center of this song that haunts me now, knowing what happened. Tim Bergling spent his entire adult life finding himself. He traveled the world. He created music that moved millions. He pushed boundaries and broke rules and built things that hadn't existed before. By any external measure, he was found. He was successful. He was living the dream. But he didn't know he was lost. He couldn't see it. None of us could. And then, in 2018, at 28 years old, he was gone. The irony is devastating. The song that made him famous was about wanting to be woken when it's all over. About wanting to reach the part where you're wise and everything makes sense. About not knowing you're lost until you're found. Tim never got to be wise and old. He never got to look back and understand. He never got to be woken up. But his music remains. And in that music, he's still here. Still young. Still feeling his way through darkness. Still hoping for a place where he belongs. After Tim died, people started hearing "Wake Me Up" differently. Some heard it as a funeral song. A prayer for whatever comes after. A hope that when it's all over, when we finally have perspective, we'll understand what we couldn't see while we were here. Some heard it as Tim's message to us. A goodbye he didn't know he was writing. A way of saying, I'm tired. I'm carrying too much. Wake me up when it's easier. Wake me up when the weight lifts. Wake me up when I don't have to fight anymore. I hear it as both. And neither. I hear it as the sound of a young man doing the best he could with what he had. Feeling his way through darkness. Guided by nothing but a beating heart. Not knowing he was lost. Not knowing any of us are lost, until one day, maybe, we're not. The song circles back to that realization over and over. The moment the fog clears. The moment you see where you've been. The moment you understand that the struggle, the confusion, the feeling your way through darkness, that was all part of it. That was all part of finding yourself. You just didn't know it at the time. Tim didn't know it at the time. None of us do. But we keep moving anyway. We keep feeling our way through darkness. We keep following whatever light we can find. We keep hoping that one day, when it's all over, we'll finally understand. And maybe, somewhere, Tim finally does. The next time you hear, "Wake me up," don't just dance. Really listen. Listen to the boy behind the beat. Listen to the weight he was carrying. Listen to the hope that somehow, some way, it would all make sense eventually. And then look at your own life. Your own darkness. Your own feeling your way through. You might not know you're lost right now. But that's okay. That's part of it. That's part of finding yourself. Just keep moving. Keep following your heart. Keep hoping. And when it's all over, when you're wiser and older, maybe you'll finally understand. Maybe we all will. The next time you hear it, remember, growth often begins when you leave the familiar behind. If you want more deep dives into the hidden meaning of your favorite songs, hit subscribe and join us as we decode music, symbolism, and life itself.